A beautiful sunny day in the city of Lagos, but Amara felt a chill run down her spine. She clutched her handbag tightly, her knuckles wide, as she hurried through the crowded marketplace. The pungent smell of spices, dried fish, and overripe fruit usually invigorated her, but today they only added to her growing nausea. A wave of dizziness washed over her, and she stumbled, grabbing onto a nearby store for support. The vendor, a plump woman with a gap-toothed smile, gave her a concerned look. "Why, are you alright?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. Amara forced a smile. "I'm fine, Mama. Just a little dizzy." The woman clucked sympathetically. "You should go home and rest." Amara nodded, eager to escape the scrutiny. She couldn't risk anyone noticing. Not here, not in the middle of the market. The shame would be unbearable. She quickened her pace, weaving through the throngs of people, her heart pounding in her chest. Her condition, as she delicately referred to it, in her mind was becoming increasingly difficult to manage. The constant fear of an accident, the lingering odor that clung to her despite her best effort, the galling anxiety that never seemed to leave her. It was all taking its toll. As she finally reached the relative quiet of her street, she breathed a sign of relief. She could sight her small apartment, tucked away in a building, was a sanctuary, a place where she could let her guard down, at least for a little while. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The coolness of the dimly lit room, a welcome respite from the oppressive heat. She kicked off her shoes and headed straight for the bathroom. The familiar routine of cleaning and freshening up provided a momentary sense of control, a fleeting illusion that everything was alright. But as she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the mirror, the illusion shattered. Her eyes, usually bright and full of light, were now dull with worry. Dark circles underlined them, a testament to the sleepless night she had endured. "Emeka mustn't know," she whispered to herself, her voice trembling. He mustn't. The thought of her husband discovering her secret filled her with dread. Emeka, her beloved Emeka, who had only recently recovered from a serious illness. He was still weak, still vulnerable. She couldn't bear to burden him with this, to add to his worries. She had gone to different hospitals, but the amount required to correct it was very high, and she was only recovering from paying all the debt of her husband, and so she had to keep the sickness a secret. She had sacrificed so much to save him, to pay for his expensive treatment. Amara closed her eyes, a tear escaping and tracing a path down her cheek. She had to be strong for Emeka, for herself. She would find a way to manage and to keep her secret hidden. She had to. Amara hummed a cheerful tune as she arranged a colorful array of fabrics on display outside her small shop. The midday sun cast a warm glow on the city, and the air was filled with the sound of hawkers calling out their wares and their children chasing each other through the crowds. She remembered that certain beautiful sunny day. A shadow fell across her stall, and she looked up to see Obinna, a broad smile on his face. He was a regular customer, a wealthy landowner with a keen eye for quality fabrics. But Amara knew his interest in her went beyond mere appreciation for her merchandise. "Amara," he greeted her, his voice a warm baritone that sent a slight shiver down her spine. "You look radiant today, like the sun itself." Amara laughed, a blush rising to her cheek. "Obinna, you flatter me. What brings you here today?" "Just admiring the beauty of your wares, and the even greater beauty of their owner," he replied, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Amara rolled her eyes playfully. "You're incorrigible, Obinna. Now, are you going to buy something or just stand there, charming the birds out of the trees?" Obinna chuckled. "Ah, Amara, you wound me. But since you insist, I'll take that exquisite blue silk, the one that matches your eyes." Amara raised an eyebrow. "That's my most expensive fabric, Obinna. Are you sure you can afford it?" "For you, my dear, I can afford anything," he declared, his gaze intense. Amara felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She appreciated Obina's compliment and his generous spirit, but she couldn't reciprocate his feelings. Her heart belonged to Emeka, her kind and hardworking husband. Obina, she said gently, "You're a good man and I value your friendship, but my heart belongs to another." Obina smiled, faltered slightly, but he quickly recovered. "I understand, Amara, but a man can dream, can't he?" He paid for the silk, his touch lingering on hers as he handed her the money. Amara tried to ignore the unease that crept up her spine. She knew Obina wouldn't give up easily, but she was determined to keep him at arm's length. As he walked away, Amara sighed. She couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt for not being able to return his affections, but she loved Emeka and would remain faithful to him no matter what. The air in the small apartment was thick with worry. Emeka lay on the makeshift bed, his breathing shallow and labored. The fever had returned with a vengeance, his body racked with chills and shivers. Amara sat beside him, her hand resting on his forehead, her heart heavy with despair. The doctor's words echoed in her mind. He needs specialized treatment. It's expensive, very expensive. Amara had exhausted all her savings. She had borrowed from family and friends, but it wasn't enough. The medical bills continued to pile up, each one a stark reminder of their dead situation. She had even considered selling her small shop, her only source of income, but it wouldn't fetch nearly enough. Days turned into night and Amara barely slept. She nursed Emeka tirelessly, praying for a miracle, but his condition only seemed to worsen. Desperation ground at her, a restless beast that threatened to consume her. One evening, as she sat by Emeka's side, a thought, dark and unwelcome, crept into her mind. Obina, his offer. The memory of his words, his touch sent a wave of revulsion through her. But then she looked at Emeka, his face gaunt and pale, his life hanging by a thread. The internal struggle was agonizing. Her moral compass screamed at her, warning her against such a transgression. But the love for Emeka, the primal instincts to protect him, overrode everything else. She remembered Obina's words, "Give yourself to me and I will give you the money you need to save your husband." It was a devil's bargain, but what other choice did she have? Tears streamed down her face as she made her decision. She would do anything at all to save Emeka's life. The next morning, Amara dressed in her finest clothes, a stark contrast to the turmoil raging within her. She walked to Obina's house, her steps heavy, her heart laden. She felt like a lamb being led to the slaughter. Obina greeted her with a knowing smile. He didn't say a word, but his eyes spoke volume. He led her inside and Amara followed, her mind numb, her spirit broken. The encounter itself was brief and clinical. Obina requested for an inhale, which she had never done before, but since that was what he wanted, and she did not want anything that would ruin her chances of getting the money she needs from Obina, she did as he wanted. Amara closed her eyes, trying to disassociate herself from what was happening. She focused on Emeka, on his face, on his gentle smile. She told herself that she was doing this for him, for their future. Afterwards, Obina handed her a thick envelope filled with money. Amara took it without a word, her gaze averted. She felt dirty, used and utterly ashamed. She rushed home, the money burning a hole in her hand. She paid the doctor and Emeka was admitted to the specialized clinic. Amara stayed by his side, praying for his recovery, her guilt a constant companion. Weeks turned into months and Emeka slowly recovered. The specialized treatment, made possible by Obina's money, had worked wonders. His fever subsided, his strength returned, and the color gradually seeped back into his cheeks. Amara watched his progress with a mixture of relief and guilt. She had saved his life, but at what cost? The memory of her encounter with Obina haunted her. She scrubbed her body raw every day, trying to wash away the feeling of his touch, the shame of her betrayal, but the stain on her soul remained a constant reminder of her desperate act. And then there was the condition. It had started subtly. a slight discomfort, an occasional accident, but as the weeks passed, it worsened. The smell, once faint and manageable, became more pronounced, clinging to her clothes, to her hair, to her very skin. She tried everything to control it. Herbs, caution, special diet, but nothing worked. The fear of Emeka discovering her secret consumed her, and that was when she went to seek medical attention, and she was told that the cost for the treatment was very expensive. Knowing that she had just spent all her money on Emeka, she couldn't afford to pay for any other treatment, and she did not want to associate herself with Obinna, as he even stopped coming to her shop after that day. She avoided Emeka. She avoided intimacy with him, making excuses about being tired and unwell. She spent hours in the bathroom, cleaning and freshening up, hoping to mask the odor, but the fear was always there, lurking in the shadows, poisoning her every moment. Emeka, oblivious to her inner turmoil, was overjoyed at his recovery. He showered her with affection, grateful for her unwavering support during his illness. Amara forced a smile, trying to reciprocate his love, but the guilt gunned at her, making it impossible to truly enjoy their reunion. One evening, as they lay in bed, Emeka reached for her, his hand gently caressing her cheeks. Amara flinched, instinctively pulling away. "What's wrong, Amara?" Emeka asked, his voice laced with concern. "You've been distant lately. Is something bothering you?" Amara's heart pounded in her chest. She couldn't tell him the truth. Not now, not when he was finally getting back on his feet. She forced a smile, hoping to allay his fears. "I'm just tired, Emeka," she lied. "It's been a long day." Emeka didn't seem convinced, but he didn't press the issue. He kissed her forehead and turned away. A shadow of disappointment crossed his face. Amara lay awake long after he had fallen asleep, the weight of her secret pressing down like a physical body. The days that followed were a blur of anxiety and fear. Amara's condition worsened and the smell became almost unbearable. She started wearing layers of clothes, hoping to mask the odor, but it was no use. The shame was suffocating, making it difficult to breathe. She knew she couldn't keep this up forever. The truth would come out eventually, but how could she face Emeka? How could she explain her betrayal, her condition? The thought of losing him, of seeing the disgust in his eyes, was more than she could bear. The subtle, almost imperceptible scent had been plunging Emeka's senses for weeks, had now become an undeniable unpleasant odor. He initially dismissed it, attributing it to the city's general grain or perhaps a neighbor's cooking, but it lingered, growing stronger, and he realized with growing unease that it seemed to emanate from Amara. He noticed other things too: her constant trips to the bathroom, the way she flinched at his touch, the layers of clothes she insisted on wearing even in the sweltering heat. She avoided his gaze, her once bright eyes now clouded with a mixture of fear and sadness. He tried to talk to her, but she brushed off his concerns, claiming exhaustion or stress. One evening, Emeka returned home from his workshop to find Amara practically scrubbing at a stain on her dress. The smell in the apartment was particularly strong that day, a pungent fecal odor that made his stomach churn. He watched her for a moment, his heart sinking with a terrible premonition. "Amara," he said, his voice quiet but firm. She froze, her back to him, her shoulders trembling. She didn't turn around. "Amara," he repeated, stepping closer. "What is going on?" She remained silent, her head bowed. Emeka reached out and gently turned her around. The stain on her dress was dark and wet, and the smell was overwhelming. He recalled instinctively, a wave of disgust washing over him. "What is this?" he asked, his voice now laced with anger and confusion. Amara burst into tears, her body shaking uncontrollably. She couldn't meet his eyes. "Tell me, Amara," Emeka demanded, his patience finally snapping. "What is wrong with you? Why are you avoiding me? Why do you smell like this?" Amara's sob intensified. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The shame was too much to bear. Emeka grabbed her arm, his grip tight. "Tell me the truth, Amara. I deserve to know." Finally, Amara's voice broke through the tears. It's it's a condition, she stammered. I can't control it. A condition? Emeka repeated, his brow furrowed. What kind of condition? Amara hesitated, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. She knew she couldn't hide it any longer. She had to tell him everything. Amara took a deep breath, stealing herself from the confession. It's my balls, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I can't control them anymore. I have accident. Emeka stared at her, his face a mixture of disbelief and disgust. He loosened his grip on her arm, his hand falling to the side. The truth was even worse than he imagined. How long, he finally managed to ask, his voice hoarse. It started after your illness, Amara confessed, her tears flowing, feeling out. The stress, the worry, it made it worse, Emeka recalled as if she had struck him. So not only had she been hiding this humiliating condition from him, but it was somehow connected to his illness, to the very ordeal she had supposedly nursed him through. But why, he asked, his voice through the pain and confusion. Why didn't you two tell me? Why did you keep this from me? Amara looked up at him, her eyes pleading for understanding. I was ashamed, Emeka. I didn't want to burden you with this. You were so weak, so vulnerable. I couldn't bear to add to your worries. You lied to me. You let me believe you were fine, when all along you couldn't finish his statement. The thought of her, soiled and ashamed, while he lay helpless in bed, filled him with a mixture of anger and revulsion. And the smell, he continued, his voice now low and menacing. The constant cleaning, the avoidance, it all makes sense now. Amaka shrank back, her body trembling. She had expected his anger, his disgust, but it still hurt, like a knife twisting her gut. Emeka, please, she begged, reaching for him. Try to understand. I did it for you. I didn't want to lose you. What do you mean by you don't want to lose me? Emeka asked. Amara knew at this point that she had to tell him the truth. She confessed to Emeka that she had carnal knowledge with another man, thereby leading her to this condition. Emeka was shocked. Wait, so is this how this happened? Yes, please, Emeka. Emeka jerked his hands away, his eyes filled with loathing. Don't touch me, he spat. You disgust me. Amara's heart shattered into a million pieces. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. She had lost him. She had lost everything. Get out, Emeka said, his voice cold and emotionless. Get out of my sight. Amara stumbled back, her legs barely able to support her weight. She turned and fled the apartment, her sobs echoing through the empty hallway. She didn't know where she was going, what she would do. All she knew was that she couldn't stay here, not anymore. Emeka watched her go, his body shaking with rage and heartbreak. He sank onto the bed, his head in his hands. He felt betrayed, humiliated and utterly alone. The woman he loved, the woman he had trusted with his life, had deceived him in the most cruel and disgusting way. He didn't know what to do, what to think. He just wanted to escape, to forget, to erase the last few months from his memory. He got up and walked into the window, staring out into the street. The noise and light seemed distant and unreal, like a scene from another world. He stood there for a long time, lost in his thoughts, his heart a battlefield of conflicting emotions. He loved Amara. He truly did. But could he ever forgive her? Could he ever look at her the same way? Amara wandered the streets aimlessly, her mind numb with shock and grief. The city lights blurred into streaks of color, the sound of traffic a distant hum. She didn't know where she was going or what she would do. All she knew was that she couldn't go back to Emeka, not after what had happened. She found herself in a small park, deserted at the late hour. She sank onto a bench, her body shaking with sobs. The event of the evening replayed in her mind, each scene a fresh wound to her already broken heart. Emeka's words echoed in her ears. You disgust me. The words were like a poison, seeping into her veins, contaminating her very being. She had sacrificed everything for him, her dignity, her self-respect, and this was her reward. But even in her despair, a small voice whispered in the back of her mind. Had she really expected anything different? Had she truly believed that Emeka would accept her condition at all? Perhaps she had been fooling herself all along, clinging to a desperate hope that love would conquer all. As the night wore on, The initial shock gave way to a dull ache of regret. She should have told Emeka the truth from the beginning. She should have trusted him, confided in him, shared her burden. But the fear and shame had held her back, and now it was too late. She thought of Obinna, his smug face, his predatory eye. She had used him just as he had used her. They were both complicit in the charade, both guilty of betraying Emeka's trust. The first rays of dawn painted the sky with streaks of pink and orange, signaling the start of a new day. But for Amara, it felt like the end of the world. She had lost Emeka, her home, her sense of self. She was adrift in a sea of despair, with no land in sight. She got up and walked towards the main road, her steps heavy and uncertain. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she couldn't stay in the city. Not anymore. It was time to move on, to start over, to try to rebuild her life, however broken it might be. As she reached the bus stop, a familiar figure emerged from the morning mist. It was Emeka. He looked haggard and exhausted, his eyes red-veined and filled with a mixture of pain and confusion. Emeka's heart skipped a beat. She wanted to run, to hide, to disappear, but her feet wouldn't move. She stood rooted to the spot, her gaze locked with his. Emeka walked towards her, his steps slow and deliberate. He stopped in front of her, his expression unreadable. He didn't say a word, but his eyes spoke volumes. Amara searched his face looking for a sign, a hint of forgiveness, a glimmer of hope, but all she saw was a deep sadness, a profound disappointment. After what felt like an eternity, Emeka reached out and took her hand. His touch was gentle, hesitant. Amara's eyes welled up with tears. He didn't say I love you or I forgive you. He didn't need to. His touch, his presence was enough. It was a silent acknowledgement of their shared past, their enduring bond, their unspoken promise to face the future together, however uncertain it might be. They stood there for a long moment, hand in hand, the rising sun casting a warm glow on their faces. Then, without a word, they turned and walked away, together, towards an unknown destination. The end. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please leave in the comments what you think about this story. Should Emeka forgive her? What should Amara do? Would you ever do what Amara did to save your loved one? I'll see you in the next story. You can go ahead and click on the link to watch another interesting story, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, bye. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Please click on the subscribe button to support us. Turn on the post notification to get notified when I upload a new story. Like, share, and comment your thoughts. Till then, bye.